Meanwhile, the United Nations has hosted the Nelson Mandela Peace Summit a day before world leaders begin to address the UN General Assembly. South Africa gifted the United Nations a statue of Nelson Mandela in honour of the late president and anti-apartheid hero's 100th birthday. Speaking at the Peace Summit, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said there is no justification for the existence of weapons that carry with them the potential to extinguish life.
20 years ago, almost to the day, President Nelson Mandela addressed the UN General Assembly for the last time. He said, "We must ask a question which might sound naive to those who have elaborated sophisticated arguments to justify their refusal to eliminate these terrible and terrifying weapons of mass destruction. Why do they need them anyway?" Close quotes, he asked. To this day, his question has been met with no satisfactory answer. The truth is that there can be no justification for the existence of weapons that carry with them the potential to extinguish life on this planet. We therefore applaud the adoption by the General Assembly last year of the groundbreaking treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. South Africa will soon deposit its instruments of ratification of this historic treaty. We call on all peace-loving states to ratify the treaty so that it comes into force without any delay.
This year we mark the 70th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Almost exactly 20 years ago, Nelson Mandela spoke about the landmark document in his hall. He urged all leaders to have the courage to ensure that at last we build a human world consistent with the provisions of that historic declaration. Those were words of Nelson Mandela.
Well, for more on this, we are now joined by CGTN's John Terrett in New York for us. John, tell us about the unveiling of Mandela's statue at the United Nations and the Peace Summit.
Hey Karen, well, what a wonderful way to start a General Assembly. This is likely to be quite a contentious General Assembly, I think, with Iran bubbling to the top of the agenda here, the big Security Council meeting hosted by President Trump on Wednesday. But it was a gentle start to Monday in many ways because of the unveiling of this statue, which was a gift from the government of South Africa to the people of the United Nations. And there to unveil it was the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and also the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. And he called Nelson Mandela the father of our democracy. He said he is the glue that continues to hold our nation together. Many of us, he said, would like to be like him. Integrity, compassion, a peacemaker, and a selfless leader of his people. Now, they did have a bit of trouble getting the cloth off the top of the statue, I have to tell you, because the statue has Nelson Mandela's hands up like that. But once they got it off, everybody could see it, and it's something that people here really appreciate. Everybody is talking about Nelson Mandela in this, his 100th birthday year, here at the start of the General Assembly. And if I may just move on to the Peace Summit which followed. They moved from the unveiling of the statue to the hall of the General Assembly, where this Peace Summit in honor of Nelson Mandela was held. We heard again from Cyril Ramaphosa, we heard from Leo Varadkar, the Irish Prime Minister, we heard from Antonio Guterres, who is the Secretary General, and he said that Mandela was one of those great leaders, one of humanity's great leaders, he said. He cherished the idea of democracy and free society in which all people live together in harmony. They came up with a list of things that world leaders can do to promote peace in future, including conflict prevention, conflict resolution, and peace building. We heard from Graça Machel, the widow of Nelson Mandela, who was also one of the elders here. And you know, I have to tell you that there aren't many people who could captivate the first day of the General Assembly 5 years after their death, but Nelson Mandela is one of those people, and he will be forever remembered here now because of the declaration and because of the statue in this little corner of the world, this little corner of New York City. Now, Karen, I know you wanted to talk also about what's coming up this week regarding Africa, and we have a few ideas for you. The big stories, as you said, are the DPRK and Iran. But you can also expect issues from Africa to come up, like Libya, the conflict there, the political transition in the DRC, South Sudan. Will the ceasefire hold? Migration issues are likely to be raised by African leaders here. And of course, there's President Trump. Will he ever mention Africa? He said some pretty nasty things about Africa in the past. His wife is going on a visit, his daughter's going with her, but he's not going. So we wait to see whether President Trump has anything to say about Africa in his big speech, which is Tuesday at 13:30 GMT.
Okay.
Karen, back to you.
Thank you very much, John. I'm sure we'll all be listening to that. That was John Terrett there for us at the United Nations in New York following the annual UN General Assembly.